Welcome to Quora Anonymous. If this is your first time and you like the video, please like and subscribe. If you would like to read along, turn on closed captioning with the 3 dots in the upper right corner. Now, let's begin. There are 2 parts to this tale, stay with me. Part 1. My first time in New Orleans. I had arrived a few hours early for a dinner meeting, and decided to walk around the French Quarter to get oriented. I was waiting for a traffic light when I heard a young street kid declare to a pair of business types who also appeared to be new in town. "I'm a shoe expert. I know everything about shoes. I bet you $20 I can tell you exactly where you got your shoes at. Street, city, and state. Where you got 'em at. I bet you." He pulled out $20 and flashed it in their faces. The 2 expressed disbelief, causing the young man to flash the cash again and repeat himself. "I bet you. Street, city, and state. Where you got your shoes at. $20. How about it, my friend?" They conferred. I heard the taller one say it's impossible. He can't know. He has no idea where we're from. "I'm going to do it. Lemme see your money." Tall guy reached into his pocket and pulled out his cash. "Who's going to hold the money?" The kid turned to a woman who had also stopped to listen. He asked her if she would hold the money. She reluctantly agreed and took the profit funds from both parties. She looked uncomfortable. The showdown. The kid examined tall guy's shoes. Bent over and really checked them out. Straightened up, looked tall guy right in the eye, and gave his opinion. "For the record, you and I are currently standing on the corner of Bourbon and Towel House, in the great city of New Orleans, in the state of Louisiana, and that's where you got your shoes at right now." He snatched the money from the lady's hand and took off running, as tall guy and his buddy stared in disbelief. I laughed my ass off. Part 2. 6 months later, I was back in the Big Easy. Another business meeting. This time I was hosting a group of 11 big shot bankers from various cities around the country who were attending a conference run by the association that I worked for. We were headed for Antoine's restaurant, a favorite for locals and tourists alike. We had turned off of Royal Street onto St. Louis, headed for the restaurant, when all of a sudden a little parade got backed up. I was walking in the rear of the group, and it took a moment to figure out the delay. Wow, it was the kid making his pitch to 2 of my people, Ed, a bank president from Nebraska, and Michael, an SVP from Phoenix, Arizona. "I bet you $20 I can tell you exactly where you got your shoes at. Street, city, and state." I couldn't believe it, the pitch was still exactly the same. Ed and Mike were skeptical. They sensed a scam and were giving the kid a hard time. Mike, especially, was acting like a jerk. 2 or 3 others started making rude wisecracks. They said anyone would be stupid to give him money because he was a crook and would just run off with it. I heard Ed ask back, quote, "Where you got your shoes at? What is that supposed to mean? Don't they teach English down here?" They were beginning to annoy me. I began to sympathize with the kid. Then Fred, one of the group, decided to make the wager. I don't know why, but he just pulled out a 20 and said, "You've got a bet." Ed said, "Don't do it, he'll run off." Time for me to jump in. "I'll hold the stakes." I took Fred's and the kid's money and asked the kid if he could cover more than $20. Then I winked at him. He looked at me funny, looked again, then smiled broadly and winked back. "Yeah, I can cover all these dudes' bets." "Okay, gentlemen, the young man says he can cover your bets. Fred is in, and I'm in for 20. Who else wants a piece of this?" People started handing me money. Every bill I received from a banker, the kid matched. Ed and Mike were standing back. "Want to call his bluff?" "I'm holding." They answered up. I was starting to feel really good about this. 8 of the 11 took a piece of the action, as did I, for a total of $980. The kid put up his $180. I counted out and confirmed the amount, $360. It was decided that the kid only had to give one answer. Where did Ed got his shoes at? The kid looked closely at Ed's shoes. He touched them, commented on the fine leather and the laces, asked Ed to show him the soles. Finally, he turned and looked Ed squarely in the eyes. Sir, we are standing in front of Antoine's restaurant at 713 St. Louis Street in the city of New Orleans, state of Louisiana, in the United States of America, and right now, that's where you got your shoes at. I shoved the money into his hands. Run, kid, run. I shouted as he took off in a mad dash toward Bourbon Saint at the corner. He waved, hung a left, and disappeared. I couldn't help but notice his shoes. They were beautiful. The kid really knew his shoes. Mine was personal. I hired an office manager who worked for a reduced salary. She said she was wealthy and had graduated from Stanford. And she was very efficient. We had 2 other physicians in our office, and their staff were sent daily flowers from her. Then she decided she only wanted to work part-time. As I needed someone full-time, I told her I would need to replace her. She said she would work for free. As I did not think that was fair, I declined. That month I received a bill from Office Maximum for $5,000. Since I was not using that many paper clips, I called and asked why the bill was so high. They asked me for my address, and when I told them, they said they could not give out that information. It turned out the address on the account was that of my office manager. And for many of my other accounts, also. As I investigated, I found out she was buying computers and pretty much everything else for all her friends. Her husband had even cashed some of my checks, with his signature on them, of course. I still do not know how much she stole from me. And by the way, all the flowers she was sending turned out to be from me, at least from my bank account. Since I had assumed she was rich, on her word, I never investigated her background. Her social security number was 000000000 when I finally looked. Most likely this would not happen today. But the tragedy is, she is probably doing the same thing to another doctor in another state. Mine was in Thailand. I've been in sales for 10 years, and nearly fell for this one. It was that impressive. It's also known as the gem scam. My buddy and I were going around with a tuk-tuk driver, and went to a smaller temple in the city. We walked around, while the tuk-tuk driver went to the bathroom, and upon waiting for the tuk-tuk, a person standing at the exit with a camera dressed like a tourist said hi to us. He said he was also waiting for his tuk-tuk driver. The tourist, where are you guys from? Us, San Francisco. Tim, I used to work at HP. San Jose. I love the Bay Area in perfect English. Us, that's awesome. Loving Thailand? Tim, absolutely. Today is pretty sweet too. Going back to Singapore soon, so I picked up a gem to wrestle. Us, why would you trust gems here? Tim, oh. Once a year, we come to Bangkok to buy a gem or two. They allow up to only 2 gems tax-free per year, so we buy it at a low cost and wrestle for about 2x. Pretty sweet deal. You might as well check it out. Us, oh. Okay, we were doubtful, Tim, well, enjoy the trip guys. Bangkok is fun. Make sure to explore X, Y, Z, etc. The tuk-tuk driver came back and asked us where we wanted to go next. We then asked about the gem sale. He said yes. Today is actually the tax-free day for exports. You can only pick up 2 gems though. That's why you see so many tourists from Asia here buying gems to wrestle. We were like seems fishy. However, let's check it out. The tuk-tuk took us to a diamond jeweler in the jewelry district. We went into the store and saw other tourists coming in also. I think a few of them weren't really tourists, but were actually part of their plan. Inside the jeweler, they memorized a lot of things about San Francisco. They were able to spit out random companies, locations, popular spots, etc. to build reputation. They didn't even talk about the tax-free day. We then asked about it. Why yes. Today is a special day, which is why everybody is buying. Because they did not hard sell us, I started thinking. HRM, maybe it really is true, and they don't want people exploiting it. Nonetheless, we did not buy anything, because the gems were ugly. I then googled the scam, and can't believe I fell for it. They have everything perfectly scripted, timed, and tested/mastered. I was impressed. I don't know if this is particularly clever, but it caught me out. Before I went traveling, I was selling my iMac. I put the ad on Gumtree, similar to Craigslist in the US, with a fair price, wrote a good description, and took my own pictures. A few days later, I get a text message asking about the computer, and if it was still available. Great. I thought, as someone was immediately interested and this wasn't going to be the long drawn out process I had feared. The person said they ran a business, giving the impression it was quite a large operation. For this reason, they were going to send an employee to pick up the computer. They also said they would transfer the money to my bank account prior to the handover. This set a small alarm bell ringing for me. I thought, this person is too trusting. Why would you send money to some guy you texted via Gumtree without even meeting him? I also thought, a bank transfer is final. Once it's in my account, there are no chargebacks. However, I'm a naturally suspicious person in situations like this. My gut feeling was that something was awry, but I couldn't figure out what. The backstory, the payment up front, the text messages instead of emails, the high value and easily sellable item all added up to a suspicious set of circumstances. However, sure enough, there was the money sitting in my account. He had made the transfer as promised. I thought I held all the cards at that point. I discussed this with my girlfriend on the way home that night and we ended up falling out about it. Her point was that the money was there, he can't get it back, what's the scam? Mine argument was somewhat weaker. Something didn't feel right. But at this point, what could I do? I couldn't obviously just keep the money. I didn't want to refund the money either, since if it is a scam, I don't want any money going to anyone else. I was thinking of things like money laundering, and didn't want to fall under suspicion of having any part in it. So in my mind, I had no choice but to continue with the deal. Sure enough, at the agreed time a boy turns up at the house. At this point, I'm warming to the idea that maybe everything is legit, and I'm being paranoid. Part of this is that originally, the man had said that the employee who was picking up the iMac couldn't come earlier due to football, soccer, practice. And there's the boy on my doorstep in his football kit. It's stupid that this small detail would put me in any way at ease, but it did. I check my bank account one more time to make sure the money is definitely there, hand over the computer, and apologize to my girlfriend for our previous argument. You were right, I'm sorry, I just get paranoid about these kind of things. 2 weeks later, I go to buy lunch while I'm at work and my bank card is refused. Odd, but I assumed the bank had seen a suspicious transaction and had put a temporary hold on the card. It happens. A quick call should sort it out, so I buy my lunch on a credit card and then call them once I'm back at work. I get through to the fraud dept, who tell me my account is frozen and it is due to this transaction from 2 weeks previously. I immediately knew it was the iMac money and I get that feeling of dread in my stomach. Shit. It was at this point that Santander accused me of fraud. It was at this point I got really fucking angry at them. The employee says that the money coming into my bank account is potentially fraudulent, and because I have benefited from it, they believe I could be involved. They said that the owner of the bank account who transferred the money to me had said it wasn't his transaction. I explained what the money was for, and I had text messages detailing the sale of the iMac. I was asked to bring them to a local branch for evidence. The feeling of dread grows as I work out what on earth I should do. I ask the employee if I should be consulting a lawyer right now, given they have accused me of a crime. He said he couldn't comment on that. I decided to visit the local branch of my bank and talk to them, bringing the text message evidence with me. I explained the situation. I'm told I can draw out any money from my account, apart from the amount in question. I phoned the bank's fraud department again, and I'm told I should never have been accused of fraud. In fact, I shouldn't have been told anything. I said they were right on the first point, wrong on the second. I was attending a wedding at the weekend, so I took out cash to tide me over for that. My next stop was the police station. I didn't really know what to tell them. Hi, I'm being accused of fraud, but it wasn't me, it was someone else defrauding me. I didn't go with that, but it's not far off. They said the bank would open its own investigation, and they would liaise with police. Technically, no crime had been committed as far as they were concerned. I asked that a record was made anyway, in case this goes further, so I can show that I reported it to the police early on. I just had to sit tight. 24 hours later, my account is unfrozen, with the iMac money still in place. No one can legally tell me why, or what had happened. How did I know it was a scam? Lots of little micro events, bits of language and situations. On their own they mean nothing. Together, it's a different story. This was what caused my gut feeling that something was wrong. He was too trusting. No reasonable person would transfer the money up front unless they had a pre-existing relationship. There was too much story. The business, the football practice. Everything had an explained, plausible reason to it. If he'd just said my son will pick it up on Tuesday, I wouldn't have questioned why it had to be his son. It was the fact that he explained why everything had to be as it was that made me suspicious. The lack of traceability. Text messages are not traceable, burner phones are a thing. You can give whatever name you want. He didn't contact me through Gumtree's message system that would be tied to his account, IP address etc. He just texted. He didn't phone either, so I had no idea what his voice was like. There's no chance I could have recorded him. He protected himself. Of course, I wasn't certain enough about it being a scam to back out. My misunderstanding was that a bank transfer is final. I've asked others in the know about this, and they have said a business bank transfer is final, but a personal one is still subject to fraud checks by the bank. If the sender or receiver is deemed to be fraudulent, then the fraudulent party's bank takes the hit on paying for it. So Santander had to get the money back from whoever his bank was, in this case. My other mistake was that I couldn't work out the scam. I should have listened to my gut instead of assuming I'd be clever enough to figure out what they were up to. My theory is, text message guy has means of gaining access to bank accounts illegally. He can't transfer the money into his own account, too traceable, so he buys something expensive and salable, and transfers money into the seller's account. He then sells on the item, and gets nice clean, dirty, cash. Either that, or some other kind of money laundering operation. Alternatively, it may as simple as that he just decided he would report it as fraud to try and get a free iMac. I'd be interested if anyone else has had similar experiences of scams like this, and how they work. 20-some years ago, I was in Bangkok, while backpacking through Asia. One day I went to the post office, and there I bumped into this young Thai guy who said he recognized me from a bar where I'd been hanging out the night before. He was very friendly, and invited me back to his house, where his mom would make us lunch. I was young and very trusting, and felt I had very little to lose, with 500 baht, about $20, in my pocket. So I went. When we got there way the hell out in the distant suburbs of Bangkok, his mom wasn't there, but his older brother was. He was quite personable too, asking me about my life back in the US. Turned out, the brother was a car dealer on a cruise ship that went between Thailand and Singapore. His brother explained how he had this scam going on the ship. They did it with blackjack. He had this method worked out with one of the players where that player would know the next card that would be played, and therefore could win every hand. Would I like to see how this trick works? Absolutely, I said. I can't remember the details of the trick, it's been so long. But basically, I was tipped off on the next card and could decide whether to take a hit or stand. We tried it a few times, me playing the younger brother, until I had it down. Then the brother asked if I'd like to try it out playing against a real opponent. There was this guy from Brunei called Mr. Malek who liked to gamble at blackjack. Mr. Malek, the brother said, was gay and extremely closeted, coming from a Muslim country, and frequently visited Bangkok to partake of the lady boys who were gay. So I say, what the hell, sure. Honestly, I'm up for anything. So a phone call is made, and very shortly, Mr. Malek turns up. And he was what I imagined, straight out of a David Lynch film, like Ben from Blue Velvet. Except Brunei. So we start playing, me and Mr. Malek, with the brother as dealer. The brother has given me all my betting money, some small amount like 500 baht, or $20. And as we play, I proceed to win every hand. My fortune probably doubles to about $40. Rest assured, I don't have any plans of keeping any of this money. To me, this is just some crazy experience that I'll tell my friend about when I get back to the guest house. At one point we are playing a hand, and I get the signal, and know the next card, and know I'm going to win. Then Mr. Malek sees my bet and raises me $40,000. I say sure, I'll see your $40k, why not? It's just monopoly money to me. Well, Mr. Malek points out that I've got about $40 in my pot, and need to come up with the rest of the $40,000 to see his bet. Then Mr. Malek opens up the briefcase he brought with him, and it's packed with neat stacks of $100 bills. Just like in the movies. He claimed it was $40k, which seemed believable. The brother jumped in and told Mr. Malek to give me some time to get the money together, and could we please stop the game while that happened? Mr. Malek agreed. So we put our cards in an envelope and sealed it, and both signed it all official like. Then Mr. Malek left. The brother was really excited. He said all we needed to do is come up with that money and we can win $40k, which we'll split down the middle. So, he asks, how much of it can I put up? $0. That's when I had to break it to them that I was a poor backpacker with 500 baht in my pocket, which, no, they can't have, as I need to get a taxi to take me back to my friends. The brother was insistent. I told him, look dude, I don't have it, and have no way of getting it. And I wouldn't feel too good about cheating Mr. Malek out of $40k, even if he was creepy. Sorry. Then it turned into the hard sell, which went on for a while. Then it turned into relentless badgering that had me worried I was never going to get out of there. Eventually, the brother realized I was not going to come up with the cash, and issuing a few insults about how I was a lazy hippie with no ambition yada yada, he let me call a taxi. Phew. When I got back to the hotel, and after telling my friends the whole story, I found myself reading the Lonely Planet guidebook. And there, in a section about Bangkok scams, was the one I'd just experienced. To the letter, apart from Mr. Malek. He was unique. Whether you consider that scam clever, or I'm just dumb, is up to you. The following describes one of the cleverest MOS I ever came across in 34 years of policing. I was a young detective, and came back to work after a 2-week holiday, with dozens of messages from people I had never met before, asking when I was going to get back to them to take a statement. Having no idea who they were, I called a few of them back. They were all female and they all said the same thing: their debit and credit cards had been stolen from their handbags at work, and that I had called them to let them know that the thief had been caught, and I would contact them shortly to take a full statement. I was a little bit concerned that these people mentioned that my voice sounded a little different, and asked them to check their accounts. Sure enough, all of their bank accounts had been emptied over the last 2 weeks. They also mentioned that I had asked them for their full names, dates of birth, and wait for it, their bank account number and PIN number. Now this was a surprise to me, as I had never spoken to any of these people before, nor would I ever have any need to ask anyone their PIN number in any investigation. So I talk to the front desk officer who tells me that a few days after I went on holiday, he had taken a call from someone asking for Detective Constable Doyle. The caller was told there was no such officer at the station, but there was a Detective Constable O'Boyle. Is that who he wanted? Possibly. Is he available? No sir, he's on leave for 2 weeks. Can I take a message? No thanks, that's fine, I'll call him when he comes back. So this guy was fishing. All he wanted was to find the name of a detective who wasn't going to be around for a couple of weeks. What he did next was pretty damn smart. He goes around town looking for the type of large business premises with lots of office workers in open plan offices, some of which give access to the public. So he either walks in or talks his way in on some pretext and goes mooching around looking for unattended handbags left under desks. So he grabs the purse, leaves the cash, and only takes out the credit card or debit card and puts the purse back. Before he leaves, he makes a note of the telephone number and extension number of his victims. Next, he goes to a phone and calls each and every one of his victims and tells the same story. Hello, my name is Detective Constable O'Boyle from Brentwood Police Station. We've just detained a known offender in possession of a few credit and debit cards which we believe are stolen, and one of them is yours. Have you had your purse stolen recently? No, my purse is in my bag under my desk. Could you check your purse please? Oh my god, you're right. My bank cards are missing. That's no problem, I'll just take a few details and we'll get everything sorted out. So, if you give me your full name, address, can you confirm your account number and your PIN number? Thank you. No, don't worry, you don't have to contact your bank. The account is already cancelled, and they'll send you a new card out in the next 5 working days. We'll be interviewing the suspect shortly, and I'll need a statement from you. But as there are a lot of victims, that'll probably be next week. Don't worry, your account is fine and has been secured. Just wait for your new card to arrive, and I'll be in touch sometime next week. So that gives him a whole week to empty the accounts out at a cash point without the victim or the bank being any wiser. And it left me with a couple of months of paperwork to sort out the whole thing. Plus, the guy never got caught. It isn't very often that I admire any criminal, but this one. Edit: I did consider not posting this in case anyone got any ideas, but decided it's better to make people aware of the lengths that some criminals will go to get at your bank account. If you made it this far, you owe it to yourself to subscribe.